All across America on SportsMap Radio. All over the world on the SportsMap Radio app. It's good to have you with us. Flanked by producer-engineer Charles Carter, I am the Jason Page. 1 minute late. I'm counting the number of minutes that the knuckleheads that are on in front of me owe me for the first 9 months I've been on the air. I'm counting how much money they owe me. It's good to be with you all tonight. Making friends everywhere we go. A busy edition of the Cash-In is ahead of you tonight. We will be joined. The rest of the week is kind of interesting because there are no games on until Friday. Yes, the Open Championship is on tomorrow. Yes, Wimbledon is going on, and all those things are great. But good old-fashioned American sports, America, that gets back into action on Friday night with America's Pastime. Yes, there is WNBA. I get it. And I think they might even be done now. Their All-Star break is right around the corner. So, anywho, just thought we'd say we got quite a bit planned the rest of the week. Tonight on the show, Jen Mueller stops by. 2 segments with Jen Mueller tonight. Our friend in Seattle with Root Sports, who does a terrific job on the Mariners pre- and post-game, also does some reporting during the games on the team. She's also with the Seahawks as their pre- and post-game host on their radio broadcasts throughout the year. She does some stuff with the Kraken, too, I guess. She's everywhere. But Jen Mueller will hang out with us coming up in about 27 minutes. We'll get some thoughts with her on what this All-Star break was like in Seattle. Because she was at the Home Run Derby. She was at the All-Star game. So we'll get some thoughts with her. And what would it take? Is it even possible for Shohei Ohtani to wind up in Seattle? Is there a scenario by which it could happen? Does she see the team making any trades at the trade deadline? They had a nice little spurt going into the All-Star break against the Astros. So we'll have to see what happens. But she's going to join us coming up in about 27 minutes here on the show. Kurt Helin will also drop by the show. He had a front row seat, so to speak, for the Victor Wembanyama experience in Las Vegas. Yeah. So Kurt's going to drop by, tell us his impressions of Wemby. Well, I guess he probably can't do an impression because he's about 1.5 feet shorter than him. So maybe not an impression, but give us some thoughts on what he saw with Victor Wembanyama in Las Vegas. And who else shined? Because let's be honest, Victor Wembanyama basically takes all the oxygen out of the room at that event. So we'll talk with him about the rest of the Summer League and what he saw and who may have impressed as well. So that's coming up 11:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll talk with Kurt Helin on the show and get some thoughts with him on that. Tomorrow, Sammy Arnell stops by, our Prince of Picks. We haven't talked to him in a month. The Prince of Picks, Sammy Arnell of Sports Grid, will drop by the show. We'll get some thoughts with him on the second half of the baseball season. And even though it'll be after the first round of the Open Championship, wait a minute. Am I wrong? Oh, the Open Championship isn't until next week, is it? Oh, I'm a stooge. I'm such a stooge. The Scottish Open is this week. And I sent him a text saying, hey, I want to talk about the Open Champion. And now I know why he didn't. I'm such an idiot. Anyway, we'll talk with him about the I guess we could still talk about the Open Championship with him and handicap it to a degree. But definitely want to get into it with him on some of the baseball futures picks that are sitting out there that we talked about a little bit on the show on Monday night or Tuesday night. I don't remember what night it was, but we talked about it a little bit. So we'll get into that tomorrow with Sammy Arnell on the show. And Friday, when Charles is not here because he switched days with Justin because he's going to Hotlanta, on Friday's show, 2 segments with Brian Kenny from MLB Network. So, you're going to miss that. saving up enough hours for what? See, I saved you $5. I cut you some slack. What do you mean I'm going to save the... Is that $5 the difference between you making it and not making it? Is that a direct flight for you to Atlanta? All right, that's not bad. So it's about a 3-hour flight probably. Yeah, that's not a bad flight. Houston to Atlanta. How long are you going? Be back on Monday. Is this a weekender? You're leaving on Friday? So you're leaving on Friday, you're back on Monday. Okay. What's it for, if you don't mind me asking? You got an arrest warrant out for you or something? Oh. Going to celebrate the 1 year of sobriety. Okay. It's great. I appreciate that. I know you're a good person, Charles. You're an average board op, but you're a hell of a person. I've got a question. I'm going to ask it of Kurt Heelan when he joins us coming up in about an hour and a half. But I'll ask it now of the audience. I want to see what you guys think. This whole Ja Morant, and I'm not looking to pile on Ja Morant. That is not my intent here. I was the one who said, hey, I hope he gets it together after his first gun infraction. Cost him, 7 games, 9 games. Now he gets 25. So he's in the midst of this lawsuit. A judge on Wednesday ruled Ja Morant's lawyers can proceed for now with their argument that Morant was acting in self-defense when he punched Joshua Holloway during a game at the All-Star player's Memphis area home in July 2022. Associated Press has the story. And right now, he can receive immunity under Tennessee law because of that. Morant's lawyers have acknowledged he punched Holloway one time after Holloway threw a basketball at Morant, and the ball hit Morant in the chin. In a July 26th motion, the player's lawyers said he should be immune from liability under the state's stand your ground law. Wow, this is about the flimsiest use of stand your ground I can imagine. A guy in a basketball game, somebody throws a basketball, hits you in the chin, and that is stand your ground? So in other words, if Ja Morant had a gun, well, we know he has at least one, and decided to shoot this kid, that would be stand your ground because the kid threw a basketball at his chin? Wow. Stand your ground law allows people who feel threatened in their homes to act with force in certain situations. So they're going to hear from lawyers in the case, including those representing the Tennessee Attorney General, about whether the law can be applied to the case under the state constitution. For now, they are. Holloway was 17 when the lawsuit was filed. Holloway is now 18. Morant filed a countersuit accusing Holloway of slander, battery, and assault. No criminal charges were filed against Morant. But here's my question. If the courts rule in favor of Holloway, now granted, it is not a criminal case, should the NBA dig deeper into what happened here and punish him further? Or do you just kind of say, it's a civil matter, it's a money thing, nobody's going to jail, we're just going to let it pass? I mean, as it is, it already feels like Morant's it feels to me like Morant's already getting off easy with the 25 games. I mean, I've said this before. He'll come back when people actually start paying attention to the NBA around Christmas time. It's stupid. Morant's lawyer argued there are ways for the stand your ground law to apply in civil cases and that Morant is entitled to immunity. Said the motion was timely because the trial is not scheduled until 2024. What is it with all these trials taking forever? Trump's case, for crying out loud, the missing documents case with Trump, the presidential record, that thing's not going to happen until he's already, they've decided whether or not to vote for him for president in 2024. That case ain't ever getting tried. His case in New York, the one where he's been indicted by a grand jury there, that's not going to happen until 2024. Isn't justice supposed to be swift, speedy trial, all that stuff? I guess not. We'll come back. I got some betting stuff I want to get to on the other side. Stay with us. Yeah, these are all pre-tapes tonight. No. How sweet it is to be loved by you. No, I don't think they will either. I'm suggesting they should, though. How sweet it is to be loved. I mean, it happened when he was an NBA player, July 2022. I've decided to go with the chin strap beard look. Officially shaved the neck today. Rock this for a little while. Yeah, see? Yeah. What do you mean? That's not high. That's where you're supposed to. That's where you're supposed to go. It's right on the chin line. Yeah, no, not that. Not like that. I guess this is just a well. I guess maybe this would just be called a well-trimmed beard. Yeah. It's fine. How sweet it is to be loved by you. Ooh, that smells like pizza. Bop, bop. Oh, God, I gotta see this. Is this for real? Oh, Jesus. Come on, let's check the sound. Good to have you with us tonight. Gonna add I think we're gonna add a new little background to the tidbit behind us. See, if you're watching the broadcast of the show, you'll notice something pretty cool on the tidbit tonight. We added peanut butter jelly time, PB jelly time, peanut butter jelly time, the dancing banana. Yeah, we added that to the show tonight. Why not? It's fun. I've got. It disgusts me to talk about Larry Nassar, but a story from the AP on him popped up today talking about his being stabbed in prison on Sunday. And when you hear why he was allegedly stabbed by the prison inmate doing time with him, it's just, you can't make this stuff up. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll talk with Jen Mueller. She does a great job Love talking to her. Get some thoughts with her on the Mariners and the All-Star game this weekend in this past week in Seattle. So we'll get into it with her on that. Farewell, Chris Eubanks. Lost to Daniel Medvedev in 5 sets today at Wimbledon. I mean, it was a pretty cool story. I mean, a year ago, he was like working on the Tennis Channel in the broadcast booth. Nobody knew who Chris Eubanks was. But the 27-year-old American, after being up 2-1 against Daniel Medvedev in his quarterfinal match, came up short, lost in 5 sets. But still very cool that he was able to do some things. Shot up the ATP rankings. Went up 34 spots to number 43 in the world with his quarterfinal appearance in this year's Wimbledon. So good for him. Congratulations. All right. Some sports betting stuff to get into. Obviously with the baseball season in the second half. And we got into a little bit yesterday talking about, some of the teams that could potentially do some things, odds to make the playoffs, division winners. We didn't get into the division winners and we didn't get into league winners. We just did a couple of World Series picks that we liked and some teams to potentially make the playoffs. There's also some win totals picks that are available, as in who will have the best record. Excuse me. Who will have the best record in baseball? And right now, Atlanta is a runaway pick. They are minus 420 to have the best record in baseball. Tampa Bay is plus 390. The Dodgers are plus 1,200. The Rangers are plus 4,800, and then it just goes crazy from there. Teams to potentially win 100 games this year. Atlanta right now is minus 850 to win 100 games. Minus 850 to win 100 games. I want to see what the Yankees are. I'm just curious. Astros, by the way, for our friends listening in Houston, are 90.5 right now. Not sure how I feel about that one. Not sure I would go and throw my money down on the Astros. I mean, they will have Yordan Alvarez back relatively soon. So that certainly has to be taken into consideration. But 91 games into the season. So well past the halfway point. I mean, we're talking 10 games past the halfway point. They have 50 wins. So 90 is right about there. So 90.5 for the Astros. Minus 122 over 90.5 wins. Under 90.5 plus 100. Charles, would you go over 90.5? Under 90.5? I actually agree with you. I think they actually do. I think they might just scrape by. When Vegas sets these things at 90.5, it's going to be either 90 or 91 wins. So, because they always set the number right on it. They're so good at this. I actually think they might get to 91 or 92. I think when Yordan comes back, they're going to make a push. I do. Seattle is only 3 games behind them on the loss side, by the way. And Seattle is 45 and 44 on the season. Seattle's win total right now is set at 83.5. That is really low for them. And I got to be honest, they have not had like one of those runs yet that you would be expecting from a team of their ilk. They've won 7 of 10 going into the break. The All-Star break really came at a bad time for them. Yes, I do. Well, teams with talent, yeah, and they're a talented team. I think they're one player short, though, of being a playoff team, and that's why when we get Jim Mueller on, I ask her about the the odds of them making a deal, because I feel like they're one player off. 83.5 is low, though. They're basically on pace right now to win, 82 games. I mean, they're a game over 500. If you work that out, that's basically an 82-win team. That's assuming they basically play the same way they played in the first half or worse. And I don't think that's going to happen. I like them for over at minus 102. So right now I got Houston on the over, 90.5, and I've got the Mariners over 83.5. So put those two down, and we'll see how we do in that. The Yankees right now are set at 87.5. And the Yankees are 49-42. So they're 7 games over 500, and basically this is projecting them to be right around that number. And I think that number's preposterous. I think they absolutely go over. Yankees will win 90 games. Yankees will absolutely win 90 games. They're not. The Yankees are not going to finish under 90 wins. So this number to me is low. I think it's a bargain at 87.5. I would go and get it now, especially because they're going to go into Colorado and probably mollywop the Rockies, who have been very subpar this year. That's being kind. Elias Diaz, notwithstanding with his home run last night to win the All-Star game. And I love Ezekiel Tovar. Anybody who listens to this show knows I have a baseball card of his that I'm just screaming for to keep gaining value as Tovar keeps playing well in his rookie season. But to me, the Yankees are a steal at 87.5. You're telling me the Yankees aren't going to win 38 more games this year? You know the Yankees, first of all, they're going to get Judge back at some point. Stanton still hasn't gone on a run. I talked about this last night on the show. He is bound to get hot. LeMahieu has been terrible. Rizzo's been stuck in a rut. These guys, I say this, I'm not the only one who says it, but people say this all the time. Eventually, guys get close to the numbers on the back of their baseball card. And I don't think this is any different. The Yankees are going to hit. And again, they had the hardest schedule. If you want the biggest reason to take the Yankees in the second half here to get to over 87.5 wins, here it is. You ready? Toughest schedule in baseball through the first 80 some odd games. They have the toughest schedule in baseball. They have one of the easiest schedules in baseball on the back end of the All-Star break. The Yankees will get over 87.5 wins. I would put a heavy wager on it. Just telling you. You proceed at your own risk, but I think the Yankees get there. We'll see. Texas. What do you mean, conveniently? They had the hardest schedule in the first 80 games of the year. Every time you turned the game on, it felt like the Yankees were playing a good team. Up until they played the Cubs here at the just before the All-Star break. So, I gave you 3. Gave you the Yankees over 87.5, Mariners over 83.5, and the Astros over 90.5. Gave you 3 picks. Do what you want with them. Jen Mueller coming up on the other side. Seattle's finest. She does a great job with Root Sports. Get her thoughts on the Mariners. Get her thoughts on the All-Star game, the home run derby, what the whole experience was like. I want to find out, where was Ichiro? I didn't see Ichiro at all during the All-Star festivities. Did you? I didn't see him. I didn't see Ichiro anywhere. I'm going to ask her about that. LeBron James made a bit of news tonight at the ESPYs as well. We'll get to that at some point. I'm Jason Page. The cash-in continues on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. What, LeBron? Hold on a second. What did he actually say? Oh, here it is. I found something. There we go.
It's the day I'll be done. The real question for me is, can I play without cheating this game? The day I can't give the game everything on the floor is the day I'll be done. Lucky for you guys, that day is not today.
There you go. There you go.
The real question for me is,
not today. The first part of this interview is only about 7 minutes, so I have time here to come back and hit the LeBron stuff before I throw to her. Yeah, it's fine.
I don't care how many more points I score or what I can or cannot do on the floor. The real question for me is, can I play without cheating this game? The day I can't give the game everything on the floor is the day I'll be done. Lucky for you guys, that day is not today.
Do we have a breaking news sounder? No. Do you? All right. I'll tell you when to hit it. You'll know. I said you'll know when I want the breaking news sounder. Have it ready. Welcome back to the show. 30 minutes past the hour. Jen Mueller coming up here in a few minutes from Root Sports. Does a great job on the Mariners. We have breaking news in the NBA. LeBron James accepting an award at the ESPYs tonight. And a lot of people wondering about his future. I think he laid the idea to rest as to whether or not he's planning to retire. Take a listen.
I don't care how many more points I score or what I can or cannot do on the floor. The real question for me is, can I play without cheating this game? The day I can't give the game everything on the floor is the day I'll be done. Lucky for you guys, that day is not today.
Woo! So there you have it. LeBron making it official. He is not retiring. So a little bit of news, even on this dead sports night, with no action going on out on the court. Hey, look, did anybody really think he was retiring? Anybody? Bueller? Nobody thought he was retiring, so this isn't a shock. Not a shock at all. He's going to play. He wants to play with his son. Everybody knows he wants to play with his son. This is something he's talked about quite a bit. So, I think they were doing something to honor Carmelo Anthony. He might not have even been accepting an award. I'm not sure. But him, Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade did some sort of speech for Carmelo Anthony, who really didn't get the proper send-off in the NBA. All right, let's talk to our friend Jen Mueller. Does a great job, Root Sports, Mariners coverage, also the All-Star Game. Get some thoughts with her. She got to spend a couple of days up there covering the All-Star Game. And Jen, first question, it's kind of a weird one. Where was Ichiro?
You know what? That's a great question. I did not bump into him. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't there. I just didn't bump into him because everybody else was there, and I was saying hi right and left to people, and there was a massive amount of people on the field before the game. But it was cool to see those guys come back. Dave Buhner hasn't been there for a while. Jamie Moyer was back. I haven't seen Brett Boone at T-Mobile Park in a while. I've seen him at other ballparks as we've traveled, but it was good to catch up with those guys. Adam Jones, here's a fun one for you. Adam Jones, former Mariners outfielder, is currently living in Barcelona. And he came over to do this, and he comes over a couple of times a year to do MLB stuff. How cool is that?
That is very cool. What was the home run derby like with Julio hitting the 41 home runs? And we'll get into all of the Mariners aspect of this in a minute, but just in terms of the display he put on in the first round.
Yeah, better than I imagined. I mean, I thought, I'm sitting in the seat. I'm not sitting anywhere close to left field where he's hammering these balls, right? And I'm thinking, how exciting could it possibly be to watch these guys? I mean, like, how much more exciting could it be than being on TV? It was awesome. And it was awesome to watch the crowd get into it. And he got into the rhythm, and, you know, he's just launching them. And it was electric. And I know that there's a thought that had the seating gone differently, and maybe Alonso had gone first, and Julio wouldn't have been worn out. He could have paced himself. Maybe he could have taken home the title. And you know what? That would not have been as cool as what we saw in that first round.
Yeah,
it was awesome. I've
gotten to the point, though, with the home run derby, and I was saying this on the air because we were on the air for some of the home run derby on my show. I almost feel like after the first round of these events, these guys are just running on fumes. It takes so much energy, and it almost becomes a contest of fitness and endurance to be able to just maintain some level of consistency in those final two rounds. That's almost what it feels like for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of it might be the type of swing that you have, because Julio in his second round, he was hitting them more towards center field. It was a deep part of the park. It wasn't carrying as well. You know, Vlad Jr. has a similar swing to his dad, does he not?
Yes,
his dad could go anything out of a ballpark. You know, I think some of that comes into play. And I will say that after Julio was knocked out, the energy in the building went down significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel, for that final round where everybody's supposed to be hyped up, it was not the case. When Julio was done, the fans were ready to be finished with their evening.
Fair enough. Were you able to interact with any fans? Were you able to kind of get a sense for what the fan experience was like for this event?
You know, everybody I talked to was just so excited to be there. I didn't hear about anything outside of their awesome memories and having a chance to cross something off their bucket list. And it truly was, like I was saying, to have all those people in that part of town. You don't go and make a day of baseball. But these folks are making not only a day, but 2 days and 4 days out of just watching baseball. It was really, really cool. It was cool to see how many Mariners fans were actually at the game, because when you have an event like that, and I've covered Super Bowls and I've been to large events, there is also a large corporate presence. And I totally get that, right? Like, that it is an event for networking at very, very high levels with corporate partners and things like that. I got stopped probably every 10 feet walking through the ballpark from fans who are longtime fans. right? Who this meant a lot to them. So I'm glad that they've got some new awesome memories to share.
Yeah, I agree with you. My husband and I actually went up there. What was it? 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the game, we were up there. When you were in Baltimore, I think we were in Seattle, and we went into the team store, and it was the first time I'd ever visited the team store over downtown. So we went into there and checked out some things. It was great. Tell them they got to lower the prices a little bit. My God, this stuff in that store is expensive. Oh my God. Like I wanted to I was thinking about walking out with a jersey. I was like, I'm going to need a mortgage to get a jersey. I'm like, what is going on here? I didn't realize how much this stuff costs now. I can't remember the last time I bought a jersey. It's like, my God, this stuff is expensive.
It is an investment. And I'm going to be honest with you. You and I've already chatted. I have to invest in skincare products. So, I have to balance things out.
Talk about the All-Star game itself. I mean, it was a fantastic game. I'm laughing at people who are online complaining about the way the uniforms looked. I'm like, really? If you're banging on the uniform, if the first thing out of your mouth watching the All-Star game is the uniforms, you're just looking for a reason to bang on baseball. This was a great game.
It was a great game. It was a great game. Those catches in the first inning were awesome. Getting a chance for Mariners fans to see George Kirby, Julio contributing to the game. I know that he wanted to be the hero in the ninth inning, but trying to walk was huge. I mean, that's huge, and that's a really good sign for the Mariners. But yeah, it was an entertaining game. I'll tell you, for Mariners fans. So I don't know if you tracked this because it wasn't a story outside of Seattle, but a couple of years ago, they changed their seventh inning stretch song. So, after they play Take Me Out to the Ball Game, every ballpark has, like, their signature song.
Yes.
And for years, it was Louie Louie. And they changed it a couple of years ago to be a Macklemore song. And yesterday, they brought back Louie Louie. And I don't know that people recognize, like, it was a nod, right, to the history of the ballpark. But that was kind of a fun one for the fans. It was a great experience. It was an awesome game. And I did not even, for as many All-Star games as I've watched, I could not believe it had been that long since the National League had won.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
9 years.
I thought it was great. I thought it was everything
Yeah. I thought for sure Kimbrel was going to blow it in the ninth because he has a hard time sometimes putting really good hitters away in the All-Star game. There's nothing but good hitters. Talking with Jen Mueller, Seattle Mariners, pre and post, also works on the Seahawks broadcast. Quick timeout. We'll come right back. I want to ask her about the Mariners and something in that All-Star game that dovetails into what I want to talk about with the Mariners as we continue on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. And good to talk with you all, and love talking with Jen Mueller, and we'll get some more thoughts with her coming up here in a couple minutes on the show. Did you see Pat McAfee tonight on the ESPYs? I'll give you some of the audio a little later on. I was just scrolling through my my timeline, and Pat McAfee popped up. Did he host it? Who was hosting the ESPYs tonight? Did they have a host? Who hosted the ESPYs tonight? I have no idea. Can I tell? I'm going to say something here, and here we go. Actually, for the first time in the award show history, there is no ESPYs host this year because the Writers Guild of America remains on strike. So the ESPYs instead had multiple presenters, and there's a long list of the different presenters they had, but because of the writer's strike, they decided to go without an actual host. Because then somebody's got to write all the jokes, and then they can't do that because you get it. Dwayne Wade, Angel Reese, Sue Bird, Chris Paul, Mike Tyson, Travis Kelce, DeMar Hamlin, Quavo, no idea who that is. Pat McAfee, Kyrie Irving, Lil Durk, no idea who that is. Skylar Diggins Smith, Livy Dunn, Lil Ray Howery, no idea who that is. Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, and Chris Berman. Those are your presenters. More with Jen Mueller on the other side. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. Yes. Yep. Yeah, it's more Mariner centric and talking about Ohtani, whether or not they make a move for Ohtani. I asked her about what we talked about the other night, where I said because of his deference to Ichiro, would he not go play there? Yeah. Yeah. It's peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly time. See what I put on the tidbit tonight, babe? You missed it. Peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly time.
Like that.
Peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly time.
You're streaming, right?
What?
You're streaming, right?
Yeah. No, you cannot. Nope. Sayonara. He's in such a mood tonight. I don't know what the deal is. He's going through it.
He hasn't had much exercise.
He's going through it.
Had like a lot of fun. He's not been able to go anywhere. No PARK, no nothing.
Quick rejoin here if you can. Continuing the conversation with Jem Mueller, who does a great job, Root Sports, Seattle Mariners pre and post, also on the Seahawks broadcasts as well. And apparently we learned today she even does some Kraken games from time to time because she has nothing better to do. So one of the things we all saw in the All-Star game was the fans chanting, "Come to Seattle," when Ohtani came up. And I didn't know, unbeknownst to me, and he talked about it in his little mini presser he did, I didn't know he spent time in Seattle in the offseason. I was unaware of that. So when I heard him say that, my ears kind of perked up a little bit. But I want to ask you something, and I think you're such a good person to ask about this, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. I don't know what they're going to do at the trade deadline if they try to make a move for somebody like that. If they have even the pieces in the organization to go and make a move like that. I know they've got some good minor league players, but I don't know if they try to make that move. But here's an interesting question as it relates to free agency. Would the fact that Ichiro was such a big Japanese baseball star in Seattle, do you think that would play into the calculus for an Ohtani in a negative way, in that he doesn't want to come and upstage what Ichiro did in that city? Am I overreading this, or is there something to that?
No, I definitely think there is something to that. Whether it's upstaging Ichiro or being in that shadow, I have watched Shohei and Ichiro interact a number of times. And it is always with a sense of reverence that Shohei approaches Ichiro. And when you go to Japan, there is nobody in sports that is higher than Ichiro that I have seen. I mean, it is unbelievable to see what his presence is in Japan. I know that there is something there, whether, like I said, it's upstaging or it's living up to that. I do think that is a challenging position. I love that the fans showed their love for Shohei and their support. As you know, there's a lot of factors that go into how these decisions get made for athletes and for teams, and rarely is fans chanting one of them. He has spent time in Seattle because he's worked at Driveline here and worked on his technique and his form at Driveline. I'll be curious to see where the conversations go. I thought it was awesome last night, and I think Shohei's criteria are pretty specific from what I've heard around. So,
what do you mean? Well, what do you mean when you say specific? I mean, without too much detail, if you can't divulge. But I mean, what do you mean when you say that his demands are specific?
Well, and I would say his criteria are pretty specific, and he specifically really likes California. He really likes that part of the country. He really likes the weather. He really likes the beach. It's going to be a challenge to present something that is as good as what he has criteria-wise in California.
All right, that's fair. Do you think they try to make a move for him? I mean, if he becomes a rental, no, so you don't even think they go after him.
I think the Mariners are certainly in the conversation in free agency if that's where it goes. I don't know what the Angels are going to do with him right now. I know that the Mariners want to make a play for him. I just don't know how that conversation plays out. And certainly the Dodgers are in that conversation, right? So, yeah.
But in terms of trade deadline, you don't think they would part ways with multiple pieces, you know, the Henry Fords and these guys. You don't think they're looking to move those pieces if Ohtani is available at the deadline?
I don't know that you have enough pieces right now. And if you do have pieces, I just don't think you have enough. And if you start trading guys that you know have had some success at the big league level, now you're not in a better position. Right? Like, you still have to have those guys around. So I don't know that you've got enough. Capital there.
What do you make of this first half? You know, I almost sum it up. I watched them play a game just before the break against the Giants, and Julio's dropping a ball in dead center, and I think they lost the game like 1-0. Might have been a 1-0 game they lost in San Francisco at Oracle there, and it just. There's been so many games, you know, the game where they had the bases loaded in extra innings just a couple of weeks ago, and they come up short in that game. They can't get a run across. I think it was against the Nationals, if I'm not mistaken.
They did against Houston on Saturday.
Yeah. And I mean, and you just watch these things, and I can't help but wonder. And look, we're all guessing to try and figure out why this team has come up short of expectations this year with what it was able to do last year. Is there something to be said for a hangover from the way last season ended? I mean, maybe that explains the start of the year. I don't know, but it just feels like this team has been in this malaise really for the first 80 some odd games of the year, and they're much better than what they've put out so far. Yeah.
And I think everybody has at various points tried to do too much to get out of that funk, right? And it hasn't been a cohesive team chemistry. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in the clubhouse, but when you start playing together and when it clicks and when you have that chemistry and you know that the guy next to you, all you have to do is get on base because he's going to move you over and the next guy's going to drive you in, right? Like, there is a feeling and there's a confidence that comes from that. And this team, it might have happened on this last road trip. I don't know. We'll find out when they come out of the break. Just hadn't gelled in that way. But what we saw consistently against Houston and San Francisco, because they won both of those series, was there was the inning where nobody tried to do too much. They did their job. They produced, and you could see the confidence take over for the rest of the game. I do think you are missing a veteran in the lineup, and not, you know, fans can talk about what free agent bats should they have gotten and all of that. My concern is more you're missing the voice, like Carlos Santana last year. You're missing a voice. And I'm just going to throw Nelson Cruz's name out there because I love Nelly, and he was just DFA'd and released. You're missing that to be the reminder of, guys, this is what it is, right? Every day. You don't want to put that on the shoulders of a guy like J.P. Crawford, who's posting every day at shortstop, right? I don't need him to do any more. I would like to see a veteran come in and take a little bit of that on, because I think that's kind of the missing piece.
Let me speak to a positive. How good has Brian Wu been? And are they surprised that he's been this good this quick?
I don't think they're surprised. I do think that in fact, I know they're not going to let him finish the year. I think it's been awesome to watch Brian Wu and Bryce Miller do what they're doing, because it affirms the scouting, it affirms player development. The Mariners have been awesome at developing pitchers. What we need to see them do now is develop hitters, and they talked about that in the draft choices that they've made in the last few days. But it is really impressive. It's impressive to watch those guys come up and to be efficient and to be dominant and to not look like they're struggling. And when they have struggled, because Wu struggled in his first and second starts, to not let that get to him. It's impressive. It's fun to watch. Wu's not going to finish the season because it'd be way too much of a jump in his innings when he hasn't played a full year yet.
Would it surprise you if they didn't make a move at the deadline to try and improve this roster, given the fact that they are right there when it comes to a potential postseason berth?
Yeah, it would surprise me if there wasn't a move. Now, I don't know how big any move could possibly be right now. Given what the market is, I don't know. I just don't know how big is the move, but I would expect them to do something. You are right there. This last road trip with the Astros faltering a little bit and Texas going into the break a little sluggish, there's room. Now, you still got to overcome the AL East, but as you've seen, teams that were hot have come back to earth just a little bit, and it's absolutely opened the door, and there certainly is a conversation being had about adding and making a big second half push.
Jen Mueller, catcher on Root Sports on the Mariners broadcast as the second half of the season gets ready to get underway. Jen, I always appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate you being generous with your time.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
Is right around the corner on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Stay with us. Yeah, that's fine. Mm. 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 Another hour of the show starts right now on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Charles, did you watch the, I don't know how much of a fan of like video games and stuff like that you are. Did you watch The Last of Us? Oh, you're at the end? Did you have you played the video game? Oh, okay. All right. So you could still go get it. You can still go play the game. Oh, you've watched the gameplay. Okay, fine. Okay. Oh, it's a fantastic game. Yeah. I haven't played it. I've watched my husband play because he's a huge fan of the game. I haven't seen the second one. He's played part 2. So he certainly knows a lot more about it than I do. And I don't really know the full story that much in the second half, just little bits and pieces of what part 2 of it will be like whenever that eventually comes out at some point. But what a fantastic show. It got nominated for a whole bunch of Emmys today. As well as another show that I have not watched, and I'm ashamed to say I have not seen, Succession. Because from the day I saw the first trailer for it, before it ever even came out, I thought it was going to be a great show. And people swear by it. It's one of those shows that, like, the diehards of it are, people are really into it. But I have not seen a single episode. The problem is I got so much to catch up on. I've got Mandalorian. I've still got to watch. I've still got the second half of the latest season of Mandalorian to catch up on. I have not watched the Book of Boba Fett yet, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Huh? Yeah, so am I. Yeah, I didn't. The little I've heard about it was not great either. And then there's this new Star Wars thing coming out that I saw commercials for last night during the All-Star game. There's another Star Wars thing coming out on Disney Plus, whatever it is, huh? Yes. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So there's so much out there right now. My thing that I'm into is the new Walking Dead spinoff in New York. Negan. It's Negan, though. Everybody loves Negan. I mean, Negan's awesome. So it's Negan and Maggie in New York. And I always wanted to know what the zombie apocalypse would look like in New York. So that's the one. That's the one I always wanted. So I'm kind of geeked up over that. By the way, I should mention the phone numbers tonight because I have not given them out once yet. Which just goes to show you, I just don't care. 1-800-224-2004 if you want to call into the show. If you've got a hot take, we want to hear it. Come and get it. Want some? Get some. 800-224-2004 if you want to call into the show. You can also text the show. We have an exclusive text line just for this show. Nobody else on the network has one. Just me. And I do it because I love you guys, and not everybody likes the sound of their own voice. So if you want to text the show, go ahead. Have at it. 888-670-8549. 888-670-8549. And sometimes we use that text line to give things away. I'm just saying. I haven't been giving stuff away lately. We're kind of gearing up for year 2 of the show. And we've got some big things coming down the pike in September. I wish I could make them official, but I cannot yet. There are some big things coming down the pike for year 2, which was not a given, by the way. I just want to put this out there. I'm not saying this to be a jerk, but I wasn't sure if I was going to do another year of the show, believe it or not. I wanted to prove to myself that I could still do it. Came back last September after being off the air for 6 years, 6-ish years, 6+ years. Wanted to prove to myself I could still do it. Had some people that wanted me to get back on the air. And I said, okay, I'll come back. I'll do it for I'll do it. And then I was like, well, all right. Would I rather just hand the show off to somebody else? And I still might do that at some point down the line, to be brutally honest. I might eventually hand the show off to somebody else as I work on other projects for my company, Decibel 88, while we start building some things. But for now, I will continue in my capacity as the host of this show. Kansas City Chiefs win best team, by the way, at the ESPYs tonight. I'm sorry. It's the ESPYs. I just can't. You know, I've never been able to get into the ESPYs. And by the way, I know they do great things for charity, the V Foundation and all that, so I will never denigrate it on that sort of thing. But as far as like giving out awards and, you know, you get people trying to be funny that aren't funny, you know, stuff like that. I just can't do it. No, I won't laugh unless it's funny. Yeah, I won't laugh unless it's funny. But I have to say, I've only been to a couple of comedy shows in my life. I saw Kevin James, King of Queens, that guy. I saw him once. And then I had a friend in the Bay Area who asked me to go see his stand-up show, and he was pretty good. He was pretty entertaining. And I just, once in my life, I don't know if I've told this story on this show, but I got to, about 7 or 8 years ago, I got to be a roaster at a celebrity roast. And it was the first time in my life I ever got to do like stand-up. And I was nervous as hell. Never had done stand-up in my life, but it's one of the things that was on my bucket list that I wanted to do. Because in radio, we always imagine we're funny. We always imagine the audience is laughing at every single joke we make during a show, right? I think, oh, absolutely. And you know, you get stooges for producers who are always going to laugh because they want to keep their job, so they're always going to laugh at you whether you're funny or not. So I don't really know if I'm funny. No, but it's true. Yeah, so I don't really know if I'm funny or not, because you laughing at a joke, I'm like, yeah, but am I really that funny? It's like Chaz Palminteri says in Bronx Tale, I'm funny. I'm not that funny. You never really know if you're funny until you get up in front of a crowd and make a joke. And I got a lot of laughs, I got to say. I got a lot of laughs when I did it was like a 5-minute thing. Thank you. It is. And the biggest reward I got was when I walked off the stage, there was a stand-up comedian who used to do the Johnny Carson show named Paul Bond. And Paul Bond walks up to me and he's like, wow, he's like, you're sweating. What's going on? I was like, I was so nervous. He goes, wait a minute, you've never done stand-up before? And I was like, no. And he goes, dude, you killed it. Like, you're really good at it. And I was like, really? So then I started writing a stand-up routine, and I was like, maybe I'll try, doing some open mics, things like that. And I've written some material, but I've never done the open mics for it. I have not had the testicular fortitude, if you will, to get on stage and go do stand-up in front of people. Because if I make a joke and get those crickets, like that sound effect, like all of a sudden you just hear people in the audience going, like you make a joke and people are just like, yeah. And you're just like, Jesus, what am I going to do? Yeah, excuse me. So I have not had I have not built up the nerve to get up in front of an audience. I was actually going to do it when I lived in Singapore because nobody knows me there. So I was going to do a stand-up thing there called The American in Singapore. That was going to be my routine. And just make a whole bunch of jokes about being an American in Singapore. Had the whole thing done. Was ready to do it, but just never got the nerve to do it. D.L. Hughley, yeah. I'm not familiar. Okay. I'll take your word for it. Easy date, yeah. That's true. You don't got to talk to each other. You don't have to talk to each other. It's perfect. So anyway, hit me up on the text line. David says he's listening on 104.9 The Horn. Thank you, David. Always appreciate you tuning into the show. Who? Oh, Brian's there? The first wife? Hello, Brian. The one that you are just incredibly jealous of, apparently. Caitlin Clark wins Best College Athlete in Women's Sports tonight at the ESPYs. Boy, that must drive Angel Reese nuts, huh? Because Angel Reese can't stand her. I hopefully they did like they panned to the crowd in that moment. All right, there was some big news at the ESPYs tonight. Although when I texted Kurt Heelan to tell him about it, he said, "Is it really big news?" And he might be right. I'll tell you what it is coming up on the other side in case you haven't heard about it. We'll also let you hear what Pat McAfee had to say. He went all in on Skip Bayless. Oh, boy. The cashing continues on SportsMap Radio.
Hamlin is here tonight. Sports
What's up, Bri?
society with so many things.
No, we returned the Tesla today, so we're waiting for our car. I had to give the Tesla back. My husband wouldn't let me keep it for an extra day. I did. I got to hear what Pat McAfee said about Skip Bayless. Hold on. What did he say? Bye!
Get that dead body off the field. We at home feared for the absolute worst. And Skip Bayless was like, get that dead body off the field. We got playoff implications on the line. He said it. The tweet's still up. Hashtag delete the tweet, Skip. Come on. But as we watched on, we saw something that we could have never expected. Denny Kellington and the Buffalo Bills training staff, the EMTs, the doctors at the hospital, the Sports provides society with so many things every single year. Inspiration. For those moments that are difficult, sports give you something to think about as you keep it moving. This year, obviously, we saw one of the most inspirational things that has ever happened in human history. Ladies and gentlemen, Damar Hamlin is here tonight. Hell yeah. We all watched the situation unfolding on Monday Night Football as Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were trying to navigate the waters, and we all at home feared for the absolute worst. And Skip Bayless was like, we all watched the situation. Hell yeah.
Caleb Williams wins Best College Athlete in Men's Sports. Coming up in 15 minutes, Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Full disclosure, I talked to him before the show tonight because I said, why am I going to make you come on live and stay up and come on the air at 8:30 at night on the West Coast, 11:30 on the East Coast, when there's not going to be any news between 5 o'clock this afternoon and 8:30 p.m. tonight. It's, there's nothing going on in sports right now. And, of course, LeBron James gets up on stage tonight at the ESPYs and says, yeah, I'm coming back. Not going to retire. So that will not be a part of the conversation. But I did text Kurt and said, hey, did you see the news? And he goes, it's not news. We all knew LeBron was coming back. And when you sit there and think about it, he's kind of right. I mean, we all knew LeBron was coming back. I don't think any of us really saw a scenario where he was going to sit out the upcoming season. But we'll see what next year looks like for the Los Angeles Lakers. Pat McAfee stealing the show tonight, talking about DeMar Hamlin and the moment we all saw him down on the field. Listen to what he said. Skip Bayless, listen up.
We all watched the situation unfolding on Monday Night Football as Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were trying to navigate the waters, and we all at home feared for the absolute worst. And Skip Bayless was like, get that dead body off the field. We got playoff implications on the line. He said it. The tweet's still up. Hashtag delete the tweet, Skip. Come on. But as we watched on.
That's great. That is awesome. It's great. It's true. And the tweet is still up. I mean, again, if you're FS1, you're Skip Bayless is one of the laughing stocks of sports media. People just watch to see how stupid of a comment he will make. They watch him because they like to watch him troll people. He doesn't bring any sort of value to the table whatsoever at this point, except people watching. It's like Mike Francesa towards the end. Bless his heart. Mike Francesa, one of the great sports radio hosts of this generation, was one of the originals at WFAN in New York, which was the sports talk leader forever. I don't know if it still is now. It's gone through some transition, but that's neither here nor there. Mike Francesa was a god in sports radio. But the last few years of his career, it was literally people tuning in to see what crank callers would say when they call the show. That's what it turned into. Or if he'd fall asleep during an interview. Or how many bottles of Diet Coke he would drink during a show. That's what it became. And that's what it is with Skip Bayless now. I'm not so sure that there's going to be a return of Undisputed with Skip Bayless. They're talking about, I think, August 27th is when that show is supposed to return. And I'm not so sure there's going to be a return. One, nobody wants to host with him. I mean, even I could find people that want to host with me, and I'm not very well liked in our industry. Even I could find people that would host with me. Skip Bayless? Nope, not interested. Nobody wants to host with the guy. Except Robert Littall from Black Sports Online, who we had on the show. That's just because Robert knows there'd probably be a really good paycheck involved there. And he doesn't need it anyway. He's doing all right for himself. But I don't know what FS1 is waiting for. Can you imagine what that process has to be like for whoever at, one of the higher ups is at FS1, who's going around calling people, basically begging them to host with Skip Bayless, and everybody's just like, nope, nope, nope. And then you get Pat McAfee tonight going on the ESPYs. The only thing sports-worthy on television tonight that people are watching. And he just smashed your guy to pieces. Just smashed him to bits. Yep. So we have that. We had LeBron news tonight with him announcing that he is going to continue playing. So he's not retiring, as some people thought he might, with some of the comments he made in his post-game press conference after the Nuggets swept the Lakers out of the postseason. And then there's Larry Nassar, who we talked about on Monday, because on Sunday he was stabbed at a prison in Florida where he's doing hard time, where he's going to be in prison the rest of his life. So he's stabbed in prison by a fellow inmate. Associated Press has the story. So here it is. A prisoner suspected of stabbing Larry Nassar at a federal penitentiary in Florida said the disgraced former sports doctor provoked the attack by making a lewd comment while they were watching a Wimbledon tennis match on TV. The inmate, identified as Shane McMillan, was previously convicted of assaulting a correctional officer at a federal penitentiary in Louisiana in 2006 and attempting to stab another inmate to death at the federal Supermax prison in Florida, in Florence, Colorado in 2011. McMillan attacked Nassar in his cell Sunday with a makeshift weapon, stabbing him multiple times in the neck, chest, and back before 4 other inmates rushed in and pulled him off Nassar. Correctional officers assigned to the unit at the United States Penitentiary Coleman responded to Nassar's cell, performed what officials said were life-saving measures. He was taken to a hospital. He's in stable condition Wednesday with injuries, including a collapsed lung. Cell doors on most federal prison units are typically open during the day, so prisoners can move around. Because Nassar was attacked in the cell, the incident was not captured on surveillance, which only point at common areas and corridors, because we got to give prisoners their privacy, of course. So why did he stab him? The 49-year-old told prison workers he attacked Nassar after the sexually abusive ex-U.S. gymnastics team doctor made a comment about wanting to see girls playing in the Wimbledon women's match. It's just awful. Second time now Nassar has been assaulted in federal custody. He's not going to make it. There's no way that dude lives out a natural death in prison. Decades still left for him in prison for sexually abusing athletes, including college and Olympic gymnastics stars, and possessing explicit images of children. Just awful. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So McMillan was scheduled to be released from prison in May 2046. I guess that's going to get pushed back a little bit. Funny, not funny. Sorry, not sorry. Just, yeah. So that's what's going on as far as that's concerned. By the way, speaking of hard time, did you see one of the Manson killers got out of prison? One of the Charles Manson killers was paroled after like 50 years behind bars. Like, she's 72, I think they said. And they let her out of prison. 72 years old. And she's the only, I think she's the only Manson killer that ever got out. Imagine that. I mean, that's a story that her getting out. Well, somebody's done tons of documentaries on the Manson murders. I mean, there's been plenty done on that. That dude was a madman. I mean, imagine being able to, like, get people under your control to go out and murder for you like that. I mean, that's some crazy stuff, man. The 70s were just an insane time, though. And that was it. The 70s were just nuts. You had the Zodiac Killer, all that stuff. I mean, the 70s were nuts. And there's been plenty of documentaries and movies made about it, but the 70s were just a crazy time. Kurt Heelan will join us. We'll get his thoughts on Victor Wembanyama. What were his impressions of Wimby's first official NBA action at the Summer League. And who else shined during the Summer League? We'll get some thoughts with him on that as well. Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com coming up in just a couple of minutes. We'll get some thoughts with him. I'm Jason Page, just about halfway home on this Wednesday edition of the Cash In on what is typically considered the slowest day of the sports year. See what Kurt Heelan has to say about the NBA as we continue. The Cash In on SportsMap Radio. This interview should be continuing on this Wednesday edition of the show. Always glad to. Cool. A normal rejoin should be fine here. Continuing on this Wednesday edition of the show, always glad to bring in our friend.
You know, that's how it goes.
Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com is his jam. Check him out there. Kurt, always appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Wednesday.
Anytime, Jason. Take care.
Whichever. It's fine. Either way. It's like 10:15, so there's a buffer there. If you do a normal one, I should not have to come. Well, I still have to come back, though, because I got to throw to break. So, yeah, just do a quick one. Stations in Atlanta. What do you mean? Sports stations? Not really. I don't know that market that well. It's one of the few places I haven't spent much time in. I know that Odyssey has a FM sports talk station down there, but I don't remember where it is on the dial. Atlanta's an interesting market. Do they really? I don't know that. I was not aware of that. Pansy ass take. Continuing on this Wednesday edition of the show, always glad to bring in our friend Kurt Heelan, pro basketball talk at NBCSports.com. That is his jam, back from the Summer League in Las Vegas, where he got to see Victor Wembanyama in all of his splendor. All right, you got to see him for a couple of games, Kurt. Give me a sense as to what you saw from Wemby both on Friday night and on Sunday.
First off, I think this really can be emphasized. He looks tall on TV, but until you're in person, you don't really realize how big he is. I mean, just how head and shoulders he is above other NBA-sized players out there. It's kind of shocking. But I'll say, look, what impressed me the most after watching him for a couple of days was just the maturity. Like, he had a really rough outing in that first game and 2 of 13 shooting and all this. And he came in as like, yeah, I didn't play very well. I'm out of sync, but that's okay. And just wasn't shaken by the experience or the moment, which is kind of huge, frankly, considering he's a 19-year-old who's been admittedly through, he said he's had so much promotional stuff to do, hasn't gotten to play basketball. So, that part of it, and he bounced back in game 2. You could start to see part of what he brings. And I think, and I know I'm not the first person to say this, after watching in person, I think the offense is going to be up and down this first year as he gets used to it. But his defensive impact from day one, he just 8 blocks in 2 games, blocked 2 threes, altered way more shots than that. Just his impact, and he can switch out a little bit. Like it's going to be huge. Like his ability to protect the rim and bother guys on the perimeter is going to be like the real anchor of whatever the Spurs become.
But it's interesting you bring that up, and I wasn't thinking about this until you just talked about his impact on the defensive end. And I mean, I saw it too. He's obviously, there's going to be a day one effect there in terms of what he could do on the defensive end. But at the same time, does that effort and what he's going to have to put in on the defensive end, and I know he's young and these guys got endless energy at that age, but he's going to be playing an 82-game schedule, and he probably hasn't played anything like that before. Is playing both ends of the floor, is it going to impact his offense? We talked about the fact that the offense might be up and down, and we obviously saw that in a 2-game sample. But if he's got to really put it in at the defensive end, what's he going to be by, game 50?
It's a good question. And even, to be honest with you, even he admitted, like, even after playing through the French season, because of the time off, he's like, I was pretty tired when I was getting taken out of that first game. And that when asked what he's really got to focus on over the few months until the training camp opens, he focused on conditioning and getting. Obviously, I don't think it's not a secret to anybody. He's going to have to fill out a little, right? Like there may be room on his frame to add a few pounds. But more than that, I think he was talking about conditioning and strength and just getting himself in position to play 82 games at this pace. And like I said, I think the most impressive thing is his mind and what he said. He always seems to be the right thing. How he executes that, we'll see. But he seems to get it in a way that, the Spurs Summer League coach joked that I think he's more mature than I am. And I'm like, I kind of had the same thought, frankly.
I was thinking that, it's funny. I was thinking that same thing last night. We were playing a video of Zion Williamson on a Gilbert Arenas podcast, and there was video of it where they asked him about, eating, does he eat too much, basically? And he basically, it was the first time I really saw him level up on this question of, the way he takes care of himself and what he's putting in his body. And he basically said, look, I'm 22. I've got more money than I could ever imagine. And I eat. And now he's starting to say the right things in terms of, hey, I got to do things better. I'm surrounding myself with different people, which is a whole other topic unto itself. But as soon as I finished listening to him answer, I said, my God, Wemby's more mature at 19 than Zion at 22.
Wemby has been doing, he seems to have the right people around him suggesting things. Like one of the things they've worked on, and it's been talked about, he does some of his pregame workouts and some of his workouts, period, barefoot. And it's because for guys that size, going back to Yao Ming and a long history of them, foot problems. It's something Bill Russell has, like, not Bill Russell, Bill Walton. And he had back issues too, but like there's a long history of foot issues with big men. He is working hard to strengthen and I'm not sure what the proper terms are, but do whatever you do with feet to make sure that that's less likely to be an issue over the course of his career. So you're right. He gets, by the way, that Zion interview was interesting. I'm with you on that. It was, look, I've heard the stories from people in the Pelicans about the issues they had and concerns they had. And if he's acknowledging it, maybe that's the first step. He's going to have to prove it to us on the court and stay on the court, and him and Brandon Ingram. But at least I was about the most honest I've seen him, because we'd all heard the stories, and it was, he hired a professional chef, and I'm not sure what that guy did for a few years. It would have been the easiest gig in America.
Kurt Hill had joined us, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Who else really impressed you at Summer League?
Of the guys you kind of probably heard about, Jabari Smith Jr. looks more than ready to kind of take a step forward and take on some more responsibility. It's going to be interesting to see how all that fits with Fred VanVleet will come in and can work off ball and do some stuff. There's Dylan Brooks. It's going to be an interesting mix, but he looks ready to take a step forward. I'm trying to think, who else was I writing about in the last few days, and suddenly I'm
How about Champagny? Continuing the conversation with Jem Mueller, who does a great job, Root Sports, Seattle Mariners pre and post, also on the Seahawks broadcasts as well, and apparently we learned today. So good to talk to Kurt Heelan, who joined us on the show tonight. Always good to get some thoughts with him. So one of the things we all saw in the All-Star game was the fans chanting, "Come to Seattle."
Kind of interesting
when Ohtani came up.
I don't know why
I didn't know
the interview with him cut off.
Unbeknownst to me, and he talked about it in his little mini presser he did.
But for some reason, the interview with him cut off, and it went to our conversation with
I was unaware of that.
Jen Mueller.
When I heard
a technical glitch. We'll try and see if we can figure out why that took place. I don't really know.
But good to talk to him as always and get some thoughts with him as somebody who was able to see Victor Wembanyama up close and in person at these Summer League games. And, of course, he is taking the rest of the Summer League off. And something I talked about on the show, it might have been Monday, I don't know. I mean, he still doesn't even have a house yet. The guy basically got drafted, did a media tour, and then it was time for the Summer League. And, look, I'll put myself in the category of people that had a slight overreaction, if you will, to the way he played in that Summer League debut on Friday. I'll go along and say it was a slight overreaction to the way he played in that game. But it was all we had to go by in terms of, those of us that haven't watched him play in the French League or whatever it is. This was our first crack at seeing him playing in the NBA and up against NBA type competition, even if it is a bunch of guys that largely will be sitting at the end of the bench on their respective teams, come the regular season. But now he gets the rest of this offseason to get himself in shape, get some rest, and get himself ready for the start of a grueling, 82 games plus preseason. 82 games plus preseason. He's going to play more basketball than he's ever played in his life from basically September through May. And probably not beyond that, because I don't think that anybody's anticipating the Spurs are going to be a playoff team in his first season. But it's going to take some time. I think defensively he will shine day one. I think he will be a difference maker at the defensive end. And I think they're going to be patient with him on the offensive side. And they have the luxury of letting him develop slowly because there's no expectations of the Spurs winning anything for a while. And he's 19 years old. Remember, when Zion Williamson came into the league, which is the last guy there was this kind of bluster over. When Zion Williamson came into the league, he was coming to a New Orleans team that had some expectations. Brought in Brandon Ingram. Then they added C.J. McCullough a couple of years after that. I mean, there were expectations that New Orleans was going to be a good basketball team. And he had to be a part of making them a good basketball team. The fact that none of those expectations exist for Victor Wembanyama. I've said this before. Some guys get born on third base when they come into a pro sports league. Some guys get born on first base. Wembanyama is getting the greatest possible start for an NBA career with the kind of hype around him. We're coming back. Did that interview stop abruptly? Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. I'm going to go look at it again. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Continuing on this Wednesday edition of the show.
More than ready. Last second shot from
Jabari,
Smith, like,
yeah.
Yeah, Jabari. Like, that was so much fun. And
problems on the defensive end. I mean, I was actually kind of impressed. The shot will come. You know, these guys are...
He had the better night last night. I just didn't see that game yet. The other guys you've seen out there who, you know, Tari Eason looks great for the Rockets. Like, there's certain guys who are like, wow, see, that guy's ready to go. Some of the rookies, it takes time, which is...
Continuing on this Wednesday edition of the show, always glad to bring in our friend Kurt Heelan, Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. That is his jam, back from the Summer League in Las Vegas, where he got to see Victor Wembanyama in all of his splendor. All right, you got to see him for a couple of games, Kurt. Give me a sense as to what you saw from Wemby, both on Friday night and on Sunday.
First off,
Oh, I can't stand him. I think he's so bad. He tried to ambush me on his show during the NFL season, but I knew it was coming, so I went on there and basically diffused it. Because I crushed him. I didn't crush him by name, but I listened. I came back from a break after hearing this promo where he was like, Lamar Jackson should be getting all this money and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And so my former producer that now produces his show was like, oh, he wants you to come on and talk about the Lamar Jackson stuff and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, and he's like, yeah, it's going to be friendly. No big deal. And the first thing he did when I came on was like, why'd you make fun of me? I'm always well prepared for my show. Why'd you do? And I was just like, dude, just, yeah. So I just said people that are saying this stuff are just wholly unprepared in terms of doing their homework and their research. Because if you do the research, the guy's won one playoff game in his entire career, and he's actually gotten worse throwing the football every year in the league. He's gotten worse. Charles Carter. He's gotten worse throwing the football. Talking about Lamar Jackson as we were coming back from break. So we were just chatting about that. Boy, man. Hello to our friends in Phoenix. You guys have had 13 days straight of 110 degrees plus weather. Man, stay cool down there. I mean, look, I'd like to say you're going to get some sympathy, but it's literally 100 and, let's see, today it was 108 here. I did something crazy today. You ready for this? I'm not going to get into the whole story about why or how this wound up happening, but I walked today 2.5 miles from the airport where we rented our car back to the condo where we live, which is 2.5 miles, 40 minutes in 105 degree temperatures. I did that today. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of impressed with myself. I thought I might die about halfway there. Could have called an Uber, but decided I was gonna tough it out and walk from the airport where I rented the car back to our condo. 2.5 miles. 105 degrees. Huh? On purpose. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Did you see the current water temperature in the Florida Keys is 93 degrees right now? Hey, nothing to see here. No global warming, no climate change. The water's 93 degrees. That's like a hot tub. 93 degrees. I thought the water was warm when I went into the Indian Ocean. I don't even think it was 93 degrees when I went into the Indian Ocean, when I went to, where did I go? Indonesia. I went to Bali 4 or 5 years ago. Huh? Yeah, I went to Bali. And I walked right into the Indian Ocean because I wanted to be able to say I walked into the Indian Ocean. And it was warm. Like the water was warm. It was like warm bath water. But 93 degrees? I'm telling you, man, I do not say this with any joy in my voice at all. If they get any hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico this year, and you guys know it, you're in Houston. That area gets blasted by hurricanes all the time. The water in that part of the country right now, those water temperatures, if those temperatures stay hot like they are, and you get a tropical system in those waters, we are going to have catastrophically damaging storms this year. I know you're not listening to this show for that information, but can't tell you when I was growing up, I wanted to be a weatherman. True story. Wanted to be a weatherman, but I didn't want to go to school and have to do 4 years as to become a meteorologist. Who wants to do that? I just want to be one of those fake weathermen who doesn't even get the meteorology degree, and I just go on and fake it like I know what I'm talking about. Because even the ones that are meteorologists get it wrong all the time. Right? Oh, come on. It's total guesswork. It's total guesswork. Yeah, but it's never right. It's never right. These weather guys. All right, not never, but I mean, if I could be wrong at my job, well, in sports talk, you could always be wrong, and it doesn't matter. Look at Stephen A. Smith. Zing. Yeah, it's true though. It's true though. I mean, that might be the only profession that could be wrong as much as sportscasters and still keep their job is weather people. I can't tell you how many times in the last few years they've been like, oh, it's finally going to rain in Palm Springs, and it never rains. It winds up being sunny all day because it never rains here. They're just praying for rain out here because we never get any rain. I didn't get into this last night, and I wanted to. I actually texted with Stan Van Gundy today, who's taking a break from doing media right now, which is why we haven't had him on the show. But I was texting with him today because I knew he would appreciate. Did you see this Andre Drummond story? Andre Drummond went from making $100 million to making the league minimum. And he wants to offer himself up as a cautionary tale. And it's very rare in today's media world. It's very rare to find athletes that keep it 100. You know, that, or as my buddy Vlad Lewisant would say, I'm going to keep it a buck. It's rare to find guys that are going to keep it a buck. This is a quote from Andre Drummond. I'ma tell you something. I''MA. I'ma tell you something, Drummond says. Fellas, I was that guy. I was $100 million guy. I was pouting. I was upset when I wasn't playing. And I had a bad... I mean, this should be required reading for every rookie coming into the league. I was a $100 million guy. I was pouting. I was upset when I wasn't playing. And I had a bad attitude. I went from $100 million to an expletive league minimum. This is a personal story I'm sharing with you guys right now. They don't care how many rebounds you got, how many threes you make. They care about you being as a person. Are you a good teammate? Are you a good locker room guy? Are you someone they can count on each and every single night? I talk about consistency, he says. This is his message to every young player from the age of 12 until guys that are in the league now. Andre Drummond talking about this stuff. And it's great. And when I texted Stan Van Gundy today, who was his coach with the Pistons, when Stan coached the Pistons, he was like, it's great that he's acknowledging this. Because a lot of guys, ego, they're never going to admit they're wrong. They're never going to admit they did anything wrong in their careers. It's always somebody else's fault. You get that stuff all the time. But Andre Drummond stood up and said, no, it's on me. I'm the problem. It's me, basically, is what he said. Not a lot of guys are willing to do that. I'll tell you a story, and now I don't have much of a problem telling this story because Andre said it himself. But I was a guest of Stan Van Gundy when he was coaching the Pistons. I was a guest of his at Madison Square Garden when the Pistons played the Knicks. And he got me seats right behind the basket. Really cool thing. And I took my nephew, who had never been to an NBA game, took my nephew John to Madison Square Garden to go see the game. And after the game, we also had meet and greet passes to go and meet Stan and the team and the Pistons. So game ends, the players come out of the locker room, and this was one of those the embodiment of Andre Drummond's career. First half, he had like 13 rebounds, maybe 5 or 6 points. Second half, it was as if he wasn't even on the court. He had like 2 rebounds. The rest of the game was non-existent. Knicks win the game. And after the game, Stan and I are talking. And Andre Drummond's standing about 7 or 8 feet away. And I go, man, Andre really struggled in the second half, huh? And Stan, standing right next to me about 10 feet away from Andre, goes, yeah, it's amazing. A guy makes $100 million and he can't play the whole game. Like right next to him, and said. And it was his way of basically saying, dude, you mail it in. You don't care. You got no heart. You got no heart. And that was one of the things that frustrated Stan in Detroit was Andre Drummond. The fact that you just didn't know what Andre Drummond you were getting from night to night. And he had the potential to be dominant on the defensive end of the floor and as a rebounder. Yeah, right, fine. He couldn't make free throws and all that stuff. But Andre was a really athletic big. And Stan just couldn't get it out of him. But now here's Andre Drummond, basically coming out and saying, I went from making $100 million to making the league minimum. And it wasn't long ago. He was one of the highest paid guys in the league. And he's still relatively young. He's not old by any stretch. It's a good cautionary tale. A lot of guys in the league, a lot of young guys in the league should have to learn about Andre Drummond's story and listen to his words, heed his words. All right, we're coming back. Final hour right around the corner. Jen Mueller is our 2-for-1. You'll hear from her coming up in the final hour. How about some NFL talk on the other side? Things are getting tense in New York with one of the stars of the New York Giants. We'll tell you about it next on the Cash In. Mm-hmm. See, and those guys are funny. I think that's a very underrated show. Those guys are really funny. Yeah. Wednesday/Thursday edition of the show. Good to have you with us. See, now I was planning to take Friday off, but we got a cool guest coming on Friday. Brian Kenny is going to hang out with us to preview the second half of the baseball season from MLB Network, host of MLB Now. So I'm going to be here on Friday. Brian Kenny will be my guest in the first hour of the show. In the 2-for-1, we'll have him for 30 minutes, and then we'll replay it, obviously, as we do all our first hour interviews. So looking forward to talking with Brian Kenny, getting some thoughts with him on everything going on as it relates to the baseball world. And I'm dying to hear what he has to say about the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes that kind of starts now. I mean, unless you believe that the Angels, who I think have lost 9 of 10 going into the All-Star break, are going to do something really special here in the month of July, in the remainder of July. I mean, think about it. The trade deadline's, 18 days away? I think August 2nd is the trade deadline we established. And unfortunately, August 1st, I will be on a cruise ship somewhere between Seattle and Alaska. So I'm not going to be able to talk about the trade deadline in baseball, which is one of my favorite days. And I'm not going to be able to talk about it. Sucks. We'll be off from July 28th, I believe, for about 8 days. So Brian Kenny on the show on Friday. Tomorrow, Sam Yarnell to talk some baseball futures with us. Sure, we'll throw in some other questions for the Prince of Picks, one of our sports betting guys here on the show. Looking forward to getting his thoughts on the second half of the baseball season and some of the picks for some of the picks as it relates to futures, division winners, playoff teams, win totals, all of that good stuff. The ESPYs were tonight. If you missed it, LeBron James made news of a sort. Not that anybody really thought LeBron James was going to retire, but there was the thought kind of, floating around out there that he could potentially take a year off, kind of refresh his battery. And LeBron came on and said that he was going to continue to play. 21st season. He'll be just the 6th player in NBA history to play a 21st season. Think about that for a second. Of all the things he's accomplished. This was LeBron in his own words tonight at the ESPYs. Take a listen.
How many more points I score or what I can or cannot do on the floor. The real question for me is, can I play without cheating this game? The day I can't give the game everything on the floor is the day I'll be done. Lucky for you guys, that day is not today.
Definitely got some chairs, and there you go. Made some news. Made some news at the ESPYs tonight. There was some bad news on the ESPN side tonight, and I hate to be the one that has to report this news if you haven't heard it, because there isn't a soul out there that doesn't love Dickie V. ESPN longtime analyst Dick Vitale says he has vocal cord cancer. Said he has vocal cord cancer and he will need 6 weeks of radiation to treat it. He said, quote, "I plan to fight like hell to be ready to call games when the college hoop season tips off in the fall." Said that he met with his doctor. The tests on the tissues they removed showed he had vocal cord cancer. The good news is his doctors think he has an extremely high cure rate and that radiation, not more surgery, is the best path. And when you think about, tonight being, I think they said this is 30 years. This is roughly the 30-year anniversary of the Jimmy V speech, Jim Valvano speech at the ESPYs. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. And the guy that walked him to the stage that night was Dick Vitale. I mean, you talk about stuff that just comes full circle. It's amazing. He's 84 years old, and he has been dealing with all sorts of issues. 2021 diagnosed with lymphoma, months after he had multiple surgeries to remove melanoma. Last year, he just announced he was cancer-free, and now he's dealing with vocal cord cancer. It's just... Whew. There are some amazingly strong people out there, and how they deal with these things, I'll never, ever be able to understand. There was sports night, by the way. WNBA games were played tonight. New York beat Indiana in overtime 95-87. The Connecticut Sun just continue to play well. Beat Chicago 84-72. Dallas beat Minnesota 107-67. Atlanta beat Seattle 85-75. And Las Vegas beat LA 97-78. If you had money on any of those games, you are a degenerate. Stop. Get help. You should not be betting on the WNBA. Exactly. Somebody else who should also stop it. Saquon Barkley, sign your contract. My God. Does he realize running backs are a dime a dozen in the NFL? Running backs are everywhere. They're falling out of the sky practically. And now, he's really putting the Giants' season at risk with his stance right now. I mean, if you're Daniel Jones, if you're the Giant, this has got to be driving you bonkers right now. A source told ESPN's Diana Russini on Wednesday that Saquon Barkley's availability for week 1 is in serious jeopardy if he doesn't reach a long-term deal with the Giants by Monday. Barkley and the Giants have until 4 p.m. Monday to finalize the deal. Otherwise, Barkley is not eligible to be re-signed until after the upcoming season. Now, look, usually it takes a deadline to get a deal done with any negotiation. You're all hearing about this UPS thing going on right now. Your packages aren't going to get delivered through UPS starting in August if them and union officials and things like that, they can't get a deal worked out. Well, this is, that UPS deal, which is, 18 days for them to get a deal done, 19 days to get a deal done. A lot of times they don't even start really talking until close to the deadline. The deadline's here for the Giants and Saquon Barkley. Monday, 4 p.m. Otherwise, he cannot be re-signed. And Barkley was a huge component to what Daniel Jones was able to do last year. There's no strange secret that Daniel Jones' numbers saw a big uptick with a healthy Saquon Barkley for the 2022 season. And he was big last year. 4th in the NFL in rushing, 1,312 yards, had 10 touchdowns. He also tied for the team lead with 57 catches. He wants Christian McCaffrey money, which is to say he wants $16 million a season. The guy's had one good season in the last 3, and he wants Christian McCaffrey money. And the Giants are not an organization that's going to let any player hold them hostage. This could be the one, though, that is successful in getting what he wants, because the Giants, their offense takes a huge step backwards if they don't have him on the roster. If he just decides to sit out the season. And I get that running backs feel disrespected. We've talked about this with Nick Ferguson on the show. We've talked about this with various football guests. I get the fact that he feels disrespected. That running backs feel like they're a dime a dozen, because they are. Barkley said at his Athletes Making Progress Together football camp last month, if he didn't get a long-term deal by July 17th, he would at least contemplate sitting out. He also added he hadn't put much thought into it at the time. He said, what were you going to say? No, go ahead. It's fine. I was just going to read a quote from him. Dalvin Cook. Yes. Go look at Dalvin Cook. Yes. Dalvin Cook doesn't get hurt. Dalvin Cook doesn't get hurt. Dalvin Cook's really versatile. I think you don't lose a step with Dalvin Cook. I don't think your offense skips a beat with Dalvin Cook. I really don't. But we'll see. I still think they figure out a way to get it done. You're going to give up a year of your career in the prime of your career coming off the year he just had? Is he really going to do that? And are the Giants willing to put their offensive scheme at risk? There's too much to lose for both sides. They're going to come together and figure it out. We're coming back on the Cash In. I'm Jason Page at SportsMap Radio. No. Got a thought you want to send our way? Go ahead. 800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. That's the call-in number. You could also text us. 888-670-8549. 888-670-8549. Also news tonight from baseball. Dodgers-Padres to play first Major League Baseball game in South Korea. 2024. Dodgers and Padres will play Major League Baseball's first regular season games in South Korea, opening next season in Seoul, March 20th and 21st. Astros and Rockies will play in Mexico City, April 27th and 28th. Padres and Giants played the first regular season games there this April 29th and 30th. MLB will have 3 sets of international games next year, according to the Associated Press. 2-game series in London. June 8th and 9th between the Mets and Phillies was announced last month. Major League Baseball also said the Red Sox and Rays will play spring training games at Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic March 9th and 10th. The international opener will be MLB's 9th, following 1999 in Monterrey, Mexico, 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, and 2019 in Tokyo, 2001 in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and 2014 in Sydney, Australia. It would be cool to go see games in Seoul. I don't know how far Monterey is from, because I'm only a couple hours from the Mexico border. It'd be cool to go see. Can I tell you the funniest thing? I've lived in Palm Springs for 4.5 years. I have never been to Mexico. Yeah, and I live 2 hours basically to the border. I'm scared. If I really want to make sure I go with somebody who knows what they're doing. Because if you go into the wrong parts of Mexico as an American, not a good idea. That's not seeing Mexico. I want to see Mexico. I want to go to a resort. I can go to a resort anywhere. What do you mean? Yeah, I want to see real Mexico, but safe. I'm not like a daredevil, but I want to see like Mexico. You know, like I have friends. I'll tell you one. I have friends who go to Mexico to get dental work done because it's really cheap. There's a whole industry. There's a whole cottage industry there of just like a town full of dentists. And you go and you just hand them some cash and bang. You get a root canal for like $14. Oh, yeah, the cosmetic stuff, absolutely. I was talking to somebody today who shall remain nameless. We were talking about like getting work done on different things. I'm thinking about maybe doing something with my eyes. See, you can't see it because I wear glasses, so a lot of times it doesn't show up on camera. But I got some bags under the eyes, so I'm thinking maybe do something with that. I'll tell you another one. I've actually been thinking about trying to grow hair on my head. Thinking about it. Thinking about putting up a fight. All these years I stopped putting up the fight. Now I'm actually thinking of putting up the fight. No, not getting a wig. I'm talking about like actually, they have those like hymns, those different things where you can go and get like oral minoxidil or things like that. Yeah, so I can get some hair on my head because it's going. Well, no, I mean I have the ability to go and go see a dermatologist and go get a prescription and stuff like that. I do have that ability. No. It's frustrating when you have more hair on your face than the top of your head. It'll grow everywhere but the top of my head. Like, I'm not bald, but if I bend my head down, you can see it's kind of, I'm losing the fight. I'm losing the fight. See, the problem is it doesn't work because my video audience can't hear the music you play on that side. Yeah. Yeah, that would be even more confusing. People will be like, why is that playing? Yeah. You see the baseball schedule behind me for games on Friday when the regular season resumes in Major League Baseball. I was trying to convince my husband to go to Denver this weekend. The Yankees play the Rockies in Denver. It's a short flight from here. Here to Denver, the flight? It's got to be less than 2 hours. Yeah. Flight from Palm Springs to Denver. Let's see. It is. Geez, that's. I can't get a direct. Are you kidding me? There's no direct flights? Well, maybe it's not a short flight. 2 hours and 10 minutes. Hour and 48 minutes in the air. Or 776 miles if you want to drive it. We're thinking about driving to Seattle from here in Southern California when we go to do our cruise in Seattle. So, thinking about that. Coors Field is one of the few baseball stadiums that I really have an interest in going to see because it's supposedly a gorgeous ballpark. And it's amazing. Fans still go. It doesn't matter. Rockies are middle of the pack every year in attendance, despite the fact that that team has been bad for a long time. Bad for a long time. But we'll see. See what happens this weekend with the Yankees and the Rockies. It's a good opportunity for the Yankees to start the second half on a really strong note. I have not talked at all about the Live Golf stuff this week. We'll get into it on tomorrow's show, I promise you. I've kind of held it back all week. If you haven't seen the news, there's a lot of interesting stuff out there right now. This whole thing with Greg Norman, PGA Tour had a condition for a deal that Greg Norman is out. Live Golf said they won't do it. Live Golf said it had a condition that they wanted Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy to captain Live Golf teams. PGA Tour said no to that. There's I've said this before, and I won't spoil it because we'll get into it tomorrow night on the show. I still think there's a really good possibility this deal does not get done. That Live Golf and the PGA Tour do not get a deal done. And that the PGA Tour knows a deal isn't going to get done and is intentionally kind of stalling because this puts an end to all the litigation for now. And it gives them time to try and rally the troops. And there are people that are saying this idea that the PGA Tour doesn't have the money to compete with Live because Live is backed by all that Saudi oil money. There are people out there that are suggesting that's not true, that the PGA Tour does actually have a lot of money. They don't want to have to open up their books. And in any sort of lawsuit or in any sort of litigation with Live, they were going to have to open up the books and show how much money they actually have. And right now, you've got a lot of people basically saying they don't trust Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA Tour. And who can blame them? I mean, he's been as sleazy a deal maker in all of this as you could possibly be. So anyway, we'll talk about that tomorrow on the show. Give you the latest on all the Live Golf stuff. And again, we're just a week out from the Open Championship And we'll do some sports betting talk with our buddy Sam Yarnell. The Prince of Picks will join us on the show tomorrow. And again, Brian Kenny on the show on Friday for a couple of segments to preview the second half of the Major League Baseball season. But as we continue with the show on this Wednesday/Thursday, Jen Mueller stops by from Root Sports in Seattle. She covers the Mariners. She is their pre- and post-game host on the TV side. She's also the Seahawks pre- and post-game host on the radio. We'll get some thoughts with her on the All-Star game, the Home Run Derby, and where the Mariners are going in the second half of this season, if anywhere. It's the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Let's go to Denver this weekend. John, let's go to Denver this weekend. Let's go see the Yankees. What lovely. Just looked at prices. Wow. Yeah, that's not happening. Jesus. Be a lot cooler than it will be here this weekend. United, $3.49. 'You're better off driving. $15, we could drive it. $15, 9 minutes. 978.3 miles.
You know what? That's a great question. I did not bump into him, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't there. I just didn't bump into him because everybody else was there, and I was saying hi right and left to people, and there was a massive amount of people on the field before. You know what? That's a great question. I did not bump into him, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't there. I just didn't bump into him because everybody else was there, and I was
Jen Mueller will stop by the show here in a few minutes. Jen, of course, with Root Sports, does a terrific job on the Seahawks on the radio side, pre and post, also the Seattle Mariners pre and post and in-game reporting and all that stuff. And she had a chance to take in the All-Star festivities early this week. Trade deadline's just 18 days away in Major League Baseball. Brian Kenny will be on the show Friday for a couple of segments. We'll talk some baseball with him, preview the second half of this Major League Baseball season. So I'm looking forward to getting into it with him on that. Have you been to a Savannah Bananas game, by the way, Charles? Yeah, it's one of the hottest tickets in all of sports. If a fan catches the final out of a Savannah Bananas game, they get to come and celebrate with the team. And apparently that happened at a recent game. It's pretty cool. Well, the Savannah Bananas are like, they're basically the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. They are the modern day Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. They have been fantastic. And it's been it's one of the hottest tickets in sports, and they refuse to sell to ticket brokers. Like, you have to be a fan in order to get tickets. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Jordan Spieth, by the way. Have you seen this news? Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas have bought a stake in a Premier League team, Leeds United. Boy, players are getting really smart with their money. Professional athletes are getting really smart with their money. You don't lose your money if you invest in a team. You've seen team values around professional sports just continue to go up, 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 and away. You invest in a pro sports team, you are going to make your money. It doesn't matter how bad the team is. You're going to make money. Jordan Spieth confirming he and Justin Thomas have completed a deal to become minority owners in Leeds United. Ricky Fowler pulled out of the deal. He was going to get in it. Decided to save his chicken. Let's bring in Jen Mueller. Does a great job on Mariners baseball games. And Jen, I have to ask you, as somebody that was at the All-Star game, I haven't heard anybody say it. Where was Ichiro?
You know what? That's a great question. I did not bump into him, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't there. I just didn't bump into him because everybody else was there, and I was saying hi right and left to people, and there was a massive amount of people on the field before the game, but it was cool to see those guys come back. Dave Gaynor hasn't been there for a while. Jamie Moyer was back. I haven't seen Brett Boone at T-Mobile Park in a while. I've seen him at other ballparks as we've traveled, but it was good to catch up with those guys. Adam Jones, here's a fun one for you. Adam Jones, former Mariners outfielder, is currently living in Barcelona. And he came over to do this, and he comes over a couple of times a year to do MLB stuff. How cool is that?
That is very cool. What was the home run derby like with Julio hitting the 41 home runs? And we'll get into all of the Mariners aspect of this in a minute, but just in terms of the display he put on in the first round.
Yeah, better than I imagined. I mean, I thought, I'm sitting in the seat. I'm not sitting anywhere close to left field where he's hammering these balls, right? And I'm thinking, how exciting could it possibly be to watch these guys? I mean, like, how much more exciting could it be than being on TV? It was awesome. And it was awesome to watch the crowd get into it, and he got into the rhythm, and, you know, he's just launching them, and it was electric. And I know that there's a thought that had the seating gone differently, and maybe Alonso had gone first, and Julio wouldn't have been worn out. He could have paced himself. Maybe he could have taken home the title. And you know what? That would not have been as cool as what we saw in that first round.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
I've gotten to the point, though, with the home run derby, and I was saying this on the air because we were on the air for some of the home run derby on my show. I almost feel like after the first round of these events, these guys are just running on fumes. Like it takes so much energy, and it almost becomes a contest of fitness and endurance to be able to just maintain some level of consistency in those final 2 rounds. That's almost what it feels like for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of it might be the type of swing that you have, because Julio in his second round, he was hitting them more towards center field. It was a deep part of the park. It wasn't carrying it as well. You know, Vlad Jr. has a similar swing to his dad, does he not? His dad could golf anything out of a ballpark. You know, I think some of that comes into play. And I will say that after Julio was knocked out, the energy in the building went down significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. I do feel, you know, for that final round where everybody's supposed to be hyped up, it was not the case. When Julio was done, the fans were ready to be finished with their eating.
Fair enough. Were you able to interact with any fans? Were you able to kind of get a sense for what the fan experience was like for this event?
You know, everybody I talked to was just so excited to be there. I didn't hear about anything outside of their awesome memories and having a chance to cross something off their bucket list. And it truly was, like I was saying, to have all those people in that part of town. You don't go and make a day of baseball. But these folks are making not only a day, but 2 days and 4 days out of just watching baseball. It was really, really cool. It was cool to see how many Mariners fans were actually at the game, because when you have an event like that, and I've covered Super Bowls and I've been to large events, there is also a large corporate presence. And I totally get that, right? Like that it is an event for networking at very, very high levels with corporate partners and things like that. I got stopped probably every 10 feet walking through the ballpark from fans who are longtime fans, right? Who this meant a lot to them. So I'm glad that they've got some new awesome memories to share.
Yeah, I agree with you. My husband and I actually went up there. What was it? 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the game? We were up there when you were in Baltimore. I think we were in Seattle. And we went into the team store, and it was the first time I had ever visited the team store over downtown. So we went into there and checked out some things. And it was great. Tell them they got to lower the prices a little bit. My God, the stuff in that store is expensive. Oh, my God. Like, I wanted to I was thinking about walking out with a jersey. I was like, I'm going to need a mortgage to get a jersey. I'm like, what is going on here? I didn't realize how much this stuff costs now. I can't remember the last time I bought a jersey. It's like, my God, this stuff is expensive.
It is an investment. And I'm going to be honest with you. You and I've already chatted. I have to invest in skincare products. So, I have to balance things out.
Talk about the All-Star game itself. I mean, it was a fantastic game. I'm laughing at people who are online complaining about the way the uniforms looked. I'm like, really? If you're banging on the uniform, if the first thing out of your mouth watching the All-Star game is the uniforms, you're just looking for a reason to bang on baseball. This was a great game.
It was a great game. It was a great game. Those catches in the first inning were awesome. Getting a chance for Mariners fans to see George Kirby, Julio contributing to the game. I know that he wanted to be the hero in the ninth inning, but trying to walk was huge. I mean, that's huge, and that's a really good sign for the Mariners. But yeah, it was an entertaining game. I'll tell you, for Mariners fans, so I don't know if you tracked this because it wasn't a story outside of Seattle, but a couple of years ago, they changed their seventh inning stretch song. So, after they play Take Me Out to the Ball Game, every ballpark has, like, their signature song.
Yes.
And for years, it was Louie Louie. And they changed it a couple of years ago to be a Macklemore song. And yesterday, they brought back Louie Louie. And I don't know that people recognize, it was a nod, right, to the history of the ballpark. But that was kind of a fun one for the fans. It was a great experience. It was an awesome game. And I did not even, for as many All-Star games as I've watched, I could not believe it had been that long since the National League had won.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
9 years.
I thought it was great. I thought it was
Yeah. I thought for sure Kimbrel was going to blow it in the ninth because he has a hard time sometimes putting really good hitters away in the All-Star game. Is nothing but good hitters. Talking with Jen Mueller, Seattle Mariners, pre and post, also works on the Seahawks broadcasts. Quick timeout. We'll come right back. I want to ask her about the Mariners and something in that All-Star game that dovetails into what I want to talk about with the Mariners as we continue on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. Thank you. One second. Yeah, what's up? Kurt Heelan. Yeah. And then for the third hour, let's do the Saquon Barkley stuff. Oh, you know what? Yeah, if you want to put the McAfee stuff in there on the Skip Bayless thing, yeah, I like that. You can play a regular rejoin here. Thank you. Continuing the conversation with Jem Mueller, who does a great job, Root Sports, Seattle Mariners pre and post, also on the Seahawks broadcasts as well. And apparently we learned today she even does some Kraken games from time to time because she has nothing better to do. So one of the things we all saw in the All-Star game was the fans chanting, "Come to Seattle," when Ohtani came up. And I didn't know, unbeknownst to me, and he talked about it in his little mini presser he did, I didn't know he spent time in Seattle in the offseason. I was unaware of that. So when I heard him say that, my ears kind of perked up a little bit. But I want to ask you something, and I think you're such a good person to ask about this, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. I don't know what they're going to do at the trade deadline if they try to make a move for somebody like that. If they have even the pieces in the organization to go and make a move like that. I know they've got some good minor league players, but I don't know if they try to make that move. But here's an interesting question as it relates to free agency. Would the fact that Ichiro was such a big Japanese baseball star in Seattle, do you think that would play into the calculus for an Ohtani in a negative way, in that he doesn't want to come and upstage what Ichiro did in that city? Am I overreading this, or is there something to that?
No, I definitely think there is something to that. Whether it's upstaging Ichiro or being in that shadow, I have watched Shohei and Ichiro interact a number of times. And it is always with a sense of reverence that Shohei approaches Ichiro. And when you go to Japan, there is nobody in sports that is higher than Ichiro that I have seen. I mean, it is unbelievable to see what his presence is in Japan. I know that there is something there, whether, like I said, it's upstaging or it's living up to that. I do think that is a challenging position. I love that the fans showed their love for Shohei and their support. As you know, there's a lot of factors that go into how these decisions get made for athletes and for teams, and rarely is fans chanting one of them. He has spent time in Seattle because he's worked at Driveline here and worked on his technique and his form at Driveline. I'll be curious to see where the conversations go. I thought it was awesome last night, and I think Shohei's criteria are pretty specific from what I've heard around. So,
what do you mean? Well, what do you mean when you say specific? I mean, without too much detail, if you can't divulge. But I mean, what do you mean when you say that his demands are specific?
Well, and I would say his criteria are pretty specific, and he specifically really likes California. He really likes that part of the country. He really likes the weather. He really likes the beach. It's going to be a challenge to present something that is as good as what he has criteria-wise in California.
All right, that's fair. Do you think they try to make a move for him? I mean, if he becomes a rental, no, so you don't even think they go after him?
I think the Mariners are certainly in the conversation in free agency if that's where it goes. I don't know what the Angels are going to do with them right now. I know that the Mariners want to make a play for him. I just don't know how that conversation plays out. And certainly the Dodgers are in that conversation, right? So, yeah.
But in terms of trade deadline, you don't think they would part ways with multiple pieces, the Henry Fords and these guys. You don't think they're looking to move those pieces if Ohtani is available at the deadline?
I don't know that you have enough pieces right now. And if you do have pieces, I just don't think you have enough. And if you start trading guys that have had some success at the big league level, now you're not in a better position. Like, you still have to have those guys around. So I don't know that you've got enough. Capital there.
What do you make of this first half? I almost sum it up. I watched them play a game just before the break against the Giants, and Julio's dropping a ball in dead center, and I think they lost the game like 1-0. It might have been a 1-0 game they lost in San Francisco at Oracle there, and it just. There's been so many games, the game where they had the bases loaded in extra innings just a couple of weeks ago, and they come up short in that game. They can't get a run across. I think it was against the Nationals, if I'm not mistaken.
They did it against Houston on Saturday.
Yeah. And I mean, and you just watch these things, And I can't help but wonder. And look, we're all guessing to try and figure out why this team has come up short of expectations this year with what it was able to do last year. Is there something to be said for a hangover from the way last season ended? I mean, maybe that explains the start of the year. I don't know, but it just feels like this team has been in this malaise really for the first 80 some odd games of the year, and they're much better than what they've put out so far.
Yeah. And I think everybody has at various points tried to do too much to get out of that funk, right? And it hasn't been a cohesive team chemistry. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in the clubhouse, but when you start playing together and when it clicks and when you have that chemistry and you know that the guy next to you, all you have to do is get on base because he's going to move you over and the next guy's going to drive you in, right? Like there is a feeling and there's a confidence that comes from that. And this team, it might have happened on this last road trip. I don't know. We'll find out when they come out of the break. Just hadn't gelled in that way. But what we saw consistently against Houston and San Francisco, because they won both of those series, was there was the inning where nobody tried to do too much. They did their job. They produced, and you could see the confidence take over for the rest of the game. I do think you are missing a veteran in the lineup and not, fans can talk about what free agent bats should they have gotten and all of that. My concern is more, you're missing the voice, like Carlos Santana last year. You're missing a voice, and I'm just going to throw Nelson Cruz's name out there because I love Nelly, and he was just DFA'd and released. You're missing that to be the reminder of, guys, this is what it is. Right? Every day. You don't want to put that on the shoulders of a guy like J.P. Crawford, who's posting every day at shortstop, right? I don't need him to do any more. I would like to see a veteran come in and take a little bit of that on because I think that's kind of the missing piece.
Let me speak to a positive. How good has Brian Wu been? And are they surprised that he's been this good this quick?
I don't think they're surprised. I do think that in fact, I know they're not going to let him finish the year. I think it's been awesome to watch Brian Wu and Bryce Miller do what they're doing because it affirms the scouting. It affirms player development. The Mariners have been awesome at developing pitchers. What we need to see them do now is develop hitters. And they talked about that in the draft choices that they've made in the last few days. But, it is really impressive. It's impressive to watch those guys come up and to be efficient and to be dominant and to not look like they're struggling. And when they have struggled, because Wu struggled in his first and second starts, to not let that get to him. It's impressive. It's fun to watch. Wu's not going to finish the season because it'd be way too much of a jump in his innings when he hasn't played a full year yet.
Would it surprise you if they didn't make a move at the deadline to try and improve this roster, given the fact that they are right there when it comes to a potential postseason berth?
Yeah, it would surprise me if there wasn't a move. Now, I don't know how big any move could possibly be right now. But given what the market is, I don't know. I just don't know how big is the move, but I would expect them to do something. You are right there. This last road trip with the Astros faltering a little bit and Texas going into the break a little sluggish, there's room. Now, you still got to overcome the AL East, but as you've seen, teams that were hot have come back to earth just a little bit, and it's absolutely opened the door, and there certainly is a conversation being had about adding and making a big second half push.
Jen Mueller, catcher on Root Sports on the Mariners broadcasts as the second half of the season gets ready to get underway. Jen, I always appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate you being generous with your time.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
Love talking to her, and hopefully we'll get her on the show again soon. Betting notes before we go. Carlos Alcaraz, Daniel Medvedev. That match on Friday, Alcaraz a minus 275 favorite, Medvedev a plus 220 underdog. And, of course, Jannik Sinner and Novak Djokovic will meet in the other semifinal. That's your final four on the men's side. Sinner is plus 450. Djokovic is minus 630. Wow. They're down to the Final Four on the women's side. Alina Svitolina is plus 112 in the women's semifinal. Marketa Vondrasova is minus 134. You like how I was able to do those names there, Charles? Nailed them. Anja Jabeur is plus 136 in the other semifinal. Arena Sabalenka is minus 164. Look at that. Nailed them. Now we can say goodnight. We'll see you back here on Thursday night. The Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Bye, Charles. I'm Jason Page. Bye. Thanks, man. Have a good night. All right. Does it for us on the video side as well. Thank you for watching tonight. I am Jason Page. Thanks for hanging out with us on the video and audio side. We'll see you back here tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. Keep your chin up. See you later.